How's it going, everybody? Scott with Scott's Low Buck Projects. It's been a while since I did a video, but I have been trying to thrash this Ranger project into life. The goal is to have it at the Toohey Car Show it'd be the last Saturday in August in Toohey, Nebraska. I finally got, excuse me, my voice is a little hoarse. I finally got my V8 swap. We're gonna call it about 90% done. There's still a few little things I got to do yet. Camera's doing some weird flare things. Sorry about that. But me and my dad, we had drugged the truck to the shop last night. I should say, afternoon. At about I got there about 2:30 and did not leave the shop till 9 o'clock. It was a long process. We were trying to get exhaust done on this truck, and it was a nightmare. Nothing was fitting, things weren't lining up right, and I was using what I thought was the exhaust off of a 86 F-150, not the whole exhaust, but like the downpipes coming off the manifolds. I am running factory Ford 302 manifolds. They are not a match set though. The driver's side one is off of an 86 F-150, which actually is ironically in my blue F-150 currently, and it runs. That is a non-roller cam engine. You can see here, the truck sitting here. Show you some of the progress that I've done. Yes, the wiring is an absolute mess right now. That's the other 5% I got to finish. We'll say 5-10%, something like that. But right now it's running off of jumper leads and stuff. So yes, I know it's a little hack, but this is how you test things. I am pleased to say, at least as of right now, when I first got this motor fired up, when I didn't have the exhaust or anything on it, there was this annoying metallic-y tick noise that kept happening, and it was making me very uncomfortable. I thought something happened to the motor. I personally assembled this motor myself. Not an engine builder, but I have taken motors apart, put them back together, that sort of thing by myself. Not a lot, but I've done a couple. I think this will be my fourth motor I've assembled completely, down from the block all the way together. A lot of experience with Ford stuff. This is actually the first V8 I've ever assembled by myself. I've done 4-cylinder Ford motor, which actually the motor that was in this truck originally to me, 2.3 liter. That motor, I had that one completely apart and put it back together. Was a good engine. In fact, it's still sitting in the shed over there. So if anybody's interested in buying it, yeah, it'll be for sale at some point, since this one's apparently happy now. Anyway, this engine that's in this truck right now is actually out of that blue F-150. When I bought this truck, I'm trying to remember what year, I think 2022, September era, somewhere in there, it had this engine in it. Unfortunately, this engine had an issue. It was burning coolant. And this truck was overheating. Eventually got to the point you couldn't drive it anywhere. It would just immediately overheat. So the head gasket, I believe, blew or head cracked. Anyway, long story short, we found a used engine off Facebook Marketplace and got put in this truck. And there was a lot of issues, but I was able to overcome them. And well, this truck is running and driving currently. Sorry if I'm swapping my hands around a lot. There's bugs out here because it just rained. So anyway, today I'm just going to show you guys it runs. We're going to fire it up here. Like I said, a little redneck ingenuity going on here, but we got things going. So I'll hook up the S terminal on the starter. I'm going to actually attempt to start it with the key today. Hook up the negative cable on the battery because I'm not letting it sit overnight with the battery hooked up. And I don't know if you can hear it, the door buzzer works. Alright, we're going to hook up the battery now. Come on, electric fuel pump. There it goes. Alright, I'm going to jump in the truck and we're going to fire it up and see what happens. Here goes nothing. Hell yeah. Fired right up like nothing.
the next thing on the agenda, I do have to fix the ignition switch in this truck. There's something going on, like there's a slop in the ignition switch. So if the key rolls back slightly, all the gauges shut off, which is very annoying. But as you can hear, running 302. Give it a little rev here for you. I will have to put another return spring on the throttle. It hangs up a little bit. There's a little bit of a geometry issue, but there's not much I can do about it because of the way I have that throttle ran. But it's sounding very good right now, so I'm happy to report. I think it's a healthy engine. So we'll shut her off here, and I laugh. I can't shut it off because the key does nothing. But shut the key off, I guess, so it doesn't do anything else anyway. There's how it's currently running. Get you a better angle here. Notice how this is unhooked. That's just running the fuel pump. And this here is fuel pump slash distributor wire. The distributor wire, I got a wire to a ignition source, or a switched ignition source, as well as the fuel pump and the electric fan. So those three things got to be wired up yet. I do have to put a harness, part of the original harness, back in the truck. I removed it, unfortunately, not knowing. One of the wires that went into that original harness ties into the alternator on the stator, which I can show you here. This wire here, it's a white wire with a black tracer. I took it all out of the system and I couldn't figure out. I'm like, why isn't the alternator charging? I had a multimeter on the battery and it was saying 12 volts. I'm like, it's not, alternator's not charging. That alternator is actually from this truck originally, so there shouldn't be any issues with it. It was working fine before. Well, turns out I didn't know, and I wasn't that familiar with the wiring on this, so I got to do some fixing. I'm going to have to do some tidy up on the wiring. Stuff's probably going to get shortened. A lot of stuff's way too long. It's literally all like wrapped up like a freaking spaghetti mess in here right now. And I do have to, the other thing I need to test out yet, like I said, I haven't driven this truck at all. This is how fresh this is for me, and it's been a slow process. I'm not even going to pretend that it's been going well. Ran into a lot of headaches. Certain things weren't working, certain things weren't fitting. To all the people out there that want to do a V8 Ranger swap, you can do it, but definitely have patience and try not to get frustrated. It's a lot harder than people make it out to be. And I was one of those, you know, I've always wanted to do one, but it was one of those deals. First off, I never had the motor, and this one just so happened to be, it just worked out. I happen to have the engine for it, and parts are kind of expensive for things. If you're doing like me, I'm always on a shoestring budget. Don't have a lot of money to do things, at least not willingly. I mean, yes, I could dump, you know, $5,000 into a crate engine or whatever they cost now. It's been a while since I ordered one or looked at them. And yes, I could have probably had the motor just done. $400 to have machine work done on this motor, a set of used 93 F250 351 heads, which are 5.8. This motor is a 302 or 5 liter out of a 95, I think. I don't know what this engine's originally out of. It was in that truck when I bought it, but I have no idea if it's original to the truck or if they bought a crate engine, or not a crate engine, but, you know, a long block or short block from like O'Reilly's or something. And the engine had been gone through. This engine is a board 30 over engine. All I did was put new rings on it, put new crank and rod bearings in it. The cam bearings were okay. We cleaned up the rod journals were a little, or sorry, the rod journals were a little tight. Not the rod journals, gosh. I'm trying to think out loud here. There were some tight tolerances, we'll just say, on the bottom on the crank. The machine guy went through, he line honed it and said, yeah, there were some tight tolerances. There's some weird wear on the bearings and stuff. This motor really should have hardly any miles on it as of right now. I did convert it to from fuel injected back to carbureted, because this truck was not a fuel injected truck originally. This truck had a 2.0 liter 4-cylinder in it originally, this Ranger. And those trucks from factory were not a fuel injected truck. The 2.3s of this era Yes, they were. I did take the 2-liter out because the motor was no good, and I took a 2.3-liter I originally had in my 83 Ranger and stuck it in here for a brief stint. Unfortunately, that motor was pretty clapped out, and it was a hodgepodge of different parts and pieces. That's kind of what got me into cars, was that truck, actually. So there's always these trucks, I have a soft spot for these trucks just because of that was the first truck I ever owned, the first truck I learned to wrench on, and this truck here has got a lot of family ties as far as why things are done the way they are, paint scheme, decals, things like that, and I just, always thought it was neat. And nice little tribute is my dad's actually the one that helped me do the exhaust on this last night. And well, I keep saying last night, but it was nighttime by the time we were done. But big thanks, shout out to my dad for doing a good job on that. He's a welder, and he's been doing it for over 40 years. So he's about ready to retire. So this is one of those projects I'm sure he probably wasn't looking forward to doing, and as I wasn't either. But he did knock it out of the park, and things are working. As you can hear, his exhaust sounds great. What I ended up doing was we had it's an 86 F-150 motor. The driver's side manifold is from that truck. And I say motor, I should say parts from the motor. The driver's side manifold is from an 86 F-150. The passenger side manifold, however, is off of a late 70s Ford truck car or whatever, van, whatever they were using back then. The exits are different. And all I had was for the crossover pipe was a, we'll call it, it wasn't really factory. Somebody had kind of made something. They did like a Y pipe onto the factory down pipes off the engine. Well, due to the fact that these manifolds are not matched, we had to redo the passenger side exhaust down pipe, and that was a mess trying to get angles right and everything. I'm very glad we had a hoist to work on. Special thanks to my bosses at Taverdes One Stop in Valparaiso. I'm a mechanic there. They were kind enough to let me use their hoist after hours, and we definitely made use of it as we were there for quite a while. One of my bosses actually checked in on us and asked me how things were going, and I said, this wasn't fun. I was having a rough time, and it was very hot in the shop. We had to have the doors closed because it's a business, and when the doors are open at that shop, people just walk in, just completely don't think about the fact that what time is it? 7 o'clock. You think we're open? No. So yeah, we closed the doors due to that reason. People just, I don't know. A small town, I think people just think you just live in the shop, I guess. I don't know. It was kind of frustrating, but it was quite hot, and we had to take several breaks due to that. So lots of fans running and stuff, and like I said, another shout out to my dad for toughing it out, because yeah, he's, I feel bad for him because he had to deal with that. Plus, we were welding and stuff. And like I said, my dad's a very good welder. He knows what he's doing. Yes, there's a little bit of back and forth between us because things were getting heated and a little frustrated. But we managed to pull through, and I took him out for a few beers after we were done, and we kind of got over it. And like I said, now we got something to show for it. That was a nice thing. The big thing is I was really trying to retain the factory, well, not factory, the, what do you want to call it, the custom stainless steel exhaust I made for it when I first got this truck. It's a 3-inch sidekick exhaust, comes out the side. It's got 2 small glass packs on it. One I believe is a 12-inch, the other is a 10-inch. And the reason I did that because with the 4-cylinder, as we were going down the highway, you get this drone noise, and it would sound like an airplane. It would kind of almost sort of put you to sleep, and I really never liked that. Once I did this, the tone changed just enough. I mean, some people I don't really hear the difference, but it's there. Like I said, driving the truck as much as I have, the drone is not there like it was before. So I was able to reuse the exhaust. We did have to cut here. This is the 4-cylinder header. That was a stainless steel header I bought off of eBay. It was just a cheapy thing. My dad we welded this. This is 304 stainless. And he welded this on here. Originally had a flange on the end here, a 3-bolt flange. Well, we cannibalized that and used it on this exhaust. This exhaust is made out of a lot of used parts. Thankfully, my bosses are hoarders, and they happen to have a bunch of old stuff laying around. We ended up finding some old 3-bolt small flanges, to make the passenger side exhaust downpipe work off the manifold. There was absolutely no way you're getting this exhaust in or out of this truck without cutting that pipe and putting a flange on that passenger side. So, yeah, another thanks to them. Like I said, this was a big effort. It was something I was not looking forward to doing, and I'm just glad it's over. It's one of those things, yeah, don't ask me to do exhaust in your pickup, a custom exhaust, especially on something like this. No, it's one of those things you do once and you don't want to do it again. Doing a V8 swap on a Ranger is no small task. People that say it's easy either have done it a lot or they have people that do it for them. That's about the only time I could say this is an easy swap. Yes, there are harder things out there to do. I didn't have to cut the firewall. I didn't have to do all this other stuff. You know, I didn't have to modify the transmission tunnel. You know, yes, there's this is like entry-level custom build stuff. I get it. Some of you guys that are into that sort of thing, you were just probably just laughing, going, this guy don't know what he's talking about. You gotta remember, when you started out, what were you doing? So that's just one of those things. Yeah, I said I'm entry level when it comes to custom stuff. I can do factory motor swaps and it doesn't faze me, but when you start getting into custom stuff, this is a new realm for me. I've never done this stuff before. It is definitely a harsh learning curve for those of you that are not experienced with this sort of thing. And yes, this is one of those things on my YouTube channel here that it kind of dances on the line of, is this actually low budget? It started out that way, and I mean, there are definitely elements on this truck that are low budget. Like I said, the exhaust is made from a bunch of scavenged exhaust parts. None of it is new. All this is used exhaust parts. There's not one single new part on that. Actually, I think the only, well, there's new hardware and one new gasket. Otherwise, everything else is used exhaust parts. We scavenged it together off of old exhaust and things of that nature. It's in good shape. Yeah, you know, it's not gonna rust in half, you know, in a year. So I would, you know, like I said, I'm fairly happy on the way it turned out. Just, you know, like I said, it's one of those things. I've been meaning to make a video about this for quite a while, but it's one of those things. I know everybody expects a certain level of professionalism that goes into these videos, and this one was not super professional on my end. It was just one of those. I didn't know what I was doing. I was running into a lot of problems, and I wanted to show you guys that the reality of it is not as simple as people make it out to be. So I just, like I said, it is a nice end result. I'm glad I got something that I seem, you know, I think it's okay as of right now, but there are, like I said, there's tidying ups and stuff to do yet. So yeah, except for all you eagle eye watchers out there, yes, I realize this is far from finished, but at the same time, this has come a long way than it was even 3 months ago. So like I said, my dad helped me out quite a bit with this project, as he was probably, well, that was always my intention to have him help me with it, because he knows how to weld. The radiator that's in here, he did a fabulous job of doing. They call it a V8 swap radiator. It's supposed to be for an 88 Ranger. It's small for the application. The radiator, well, I can show you what a regular F-150 radiator looks like. This is out of, I believe, an 88 F-150. Sitting right there. That is a giant radiator. It's not very big, but it's giant. I mean, here's your, see the width on that? That's, I believe they call that a 2-core. This radiator, I can't talk today. This radiator on this truck, I believe they call this, yeah, this one's a 3-core, I believe, which should flow better, but it is literally, oh shoot, it's not very big. It's a small radiator for this. It's pretty close to the same size as the factory Ranger radiator, but it's got about, well, 2 more cores, because the factory Ranger radiator was a single core radiator, which is laughable. I said, it's no joke, the width of my finger. That is how wide the radiator is on that factory radiator from this truck. Anyway, my dad did a lot of he TIG welds and stuff too, so he can do aluminum welding. He fixed the upper bracket because it wasn't in the right spot. He cut off the lower tabs because they were in the wrong spot. He welded new, they're like pin mounts. that go into the factory radiator location mount spots. And all I did was I ground out the 2 upper slots, jammed some rubber radiator hose in between it so it acts like a vibration dampener, and put trying to think, I drilled, and now then I drilled 2 holes into the radiator support. Put the factory J clips back into those holes, and then I ran the factory screws back into it. So it's using factory hardware, we'll say. Like I said, next thing to do, like I said, hopefully I can get that alternator working again. Then on to I got a relay box slash fuse box to put basically in this area, where basically this little computer brain thing that I never knew what it did, that's gonna go there. Just for fun, I'm gonna leave the DuraSpark module right there. Leave the DuraSpark module in it, just so people get kind of a kick, and why is that still in there? Those things are junk, blah blah blah. Which is funny because that was the original one from my '83 Ranger, never been replaced. Because, well, ironically now this truck's running a GM HEI distributor, or GM style. It's not actually from a GM truck. It's just a custom thing that people started making. I don't know when they first started making them. I'm going to say the 80s. It was kind of a hot rod thing, which this truck's kind of turned into a bit of a hot rod, which that was always the intention. It was always meant to be a budget hot rod, though. It was never meant to do quarter miles or anything like that. It's not that I couldn't run one, it's just that it's not going to be amazingly fast. My main goal with this one was to make this more drivable, because the 2.3 liter, although a good engine, was having a hard time keeping up with modern traffic on today's highways. Back in the 80s and stuff, it was no big deal because, 55 was your national speed limit and all that. But nowadays, 65, 70 is standard speed limit on most highways around here. And this truck, when it had the 4-cylinder in it, 70 was about all it would do. And that was with the 5-speed in it too. And 5th gear was kind of a joke on this truck. The only time you use 5th is when you're on a flat level surface. And anyway, but yeah, you could ring out to the moon and probably go faster, but that's really not how you're supposed to drive a vehicle if you want the engine to last. But anyway, guys, this is just a little random update I did for you. I know some of you want to see more how-to stuff, and like I said, I'm not really into that. Mainly because there's a lot of frustration and stuff that goes on behind the scenes that you guys don't see, and I prefer to, kind of not make myself look like a complete tool or an incompetent person. Because yeah, sometimes there are stuff that you're literally shouting at the screen, going, "That's not that big a deal. You're making it out to be a big thing when it's not." And it's like, you got to remember, everybody has different levels of experience. Albeit I might be a mechanic, I'm not an expert. There are things I don't know. Wiring is a big struggle for me. I have a hard time figuring stuff out. I did work at a place that did exhaust, but a lot of good that does when you don't have any of the tools or equipment to do exhaust. Exhaust work is it's a special talent. Hats off to all you guys that do exhaust. That's a special job, and some of you probably don't get paid enough to do it. That's just the reality of it. If this were to be taken to an exhaust shop, I'm sure there would have been some choice words said if they went about it the way we did. But like I said, this worked out. We got the exhaust done, and like I said, we started at 2:30. I said I worked till noon yesterday, and then I started at 2:30, and we didn't get done. We didn't walk out of there till 9 o'clock, and we did not drive the truck there or back. We flat towed it from my house. I lived about 3 miles from town on gravel, and that truck, ironically, the engine's, the engine that is in this truck was in that truck, and that's the truck that pulled it there and back. So kind of a neat little tie-in. What are the odds? And ironically, the 5-speed manual transmission that is in this truck is also out of a 95 F-150, which that truck is. That truck does not have a manual. That is an automatic, but that was an expensive time when the transmission went out on that truck due to my own incompetence, I guess you would say, and lack of knowledge on that particular engine transmission combination. Like I said, it's a kind of a unique one because nobody's ever put to my knowledge, an older motor into a newer truck. Especially when it's the same exact engine and actually makes less power, which on that truck you honestly can't tell. I said with that original motor in there, it really isn't any different. And I know some of you are saying, why didn't you soup up the 302 that's in your Ranger? Well, like I said, the truck was never meant to be high performance or anything like that. If you think about it from what it had in there, it's technically high performance now just because it's a pretty big power upgrade. You're almost gaining, basically gaining 100 horse. So that's a pretty good boost in power on that truck. And the nice thing about it is there was some plug and play stuff on it, which I kind of like, wow, I didn't think that would work. The drive shaft that is in this Ranger is the factory Ranger drive shaft. I did not modify it, I didn't lengthen it, I didn't shorten it, I didn't have it rebalanced, none of that stuff. That apparently worked right in the rear of a 95 F-150 transmission. Now, whether or not it will work in all applications, I have no idea. I just happened to luck out on this one. So, like I said, the next thing this truck's gonna do, it's a kind of a weekend warrior project kind of thing. I don't work on it during the week, and if it's super hot out, I really don't want to work on it. Like even today, it's awfully muggy. I actually need to mow, but due to the fact it rained earlier this morning, I can't really do that because it's very muddy and, well, mowing and mud don't really go well together, and especially when you got a zero turn, it just tears everything up. So I unfortunately will have to wait to mow until later in the week, hoping it doesn't end up waiting until Saturday and then I'm freaking mowing the jungle, which the grass around here grows like, well, it's basically weeds, so it grows like weeds. And I said I was just outside walking around and just getting sweaty just from that. I didn't do anything. So, but anyway, just I don't know. Thought I'd give you guys an update on that Ranger deal. Something's actually happening, and so I'm actually pretty stoked about that. It was, to me, it's video worthy. Whether or not it was to your liking, you be the judge. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Like, comments, subscribe if you haven't, and I said, feel free to let me know what you think. You like the truck? Think I need to go a different direction? If you're in the area, like I said, Touhy, Nebraska Car Show. I happen to actually be wearing their shirt. They've been doing it for 13 years. This will be the 14th year this year. And that truck, I brought it there pretty much since it's been painted. That truck has always been at the car show, and that was 2017. I've been taking it there, and it's always it's a unique vehicle. I know you say it's unique to me, but it's also one of those vehicles you really don't see that often anymore. And especially at the smaller, around smaller towns, they're all kind of gone. There's a few stragglers hanging around, don't get me wrong, but they're always in pretty rough shape. Or if they're not in rough shape, well, it's somebody that's never going to do anything with it. They're, older person, they drive it back and forth to go get groceries or, that sort of thing. They don't view it as a cool truck. It's just a mode of transportation for them. But anyway, this truck I've always had a soft spot for these trucks, so this one I decided to do something with, and I'm glad it's panning out. Like I said, there's probably a lot of things that could have done better with it, but first time doing stuff, it's always a learning experience. So anyway, guys, I'm gonna wrap this one up here. Thank you guys for watching. Again, like, comment, subscribe. And I guess we'll see you guys on the next one. Maybe it'll be at the car show. I'm not sure. I might show you the update of, the ignition wiring all wired up and, finished properly. That could be the next one. And then also I need to test fit the hood. That's another issue. Hopefully the HEI distributor doesn't stick up too high and hit the hood. That's something I've kind of been dreading, but there's definitely, the exhaust was the biggest one. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Bye.